Hello and welcome to another video on the Watford Analytics channel. We're back today to talk about Reading. Haven't spoken since the 1-1 draw away at Rotherham last weekend. It's been the first time, it feels like in forever, there's not been 2 games in a week. I feel like I say this every time I record, but it's been a very busy week, so I've been struggling to get this video out on time. It's a late night recording for this one. We wanted to go over Reading, talk about them briefly and kind of what we could maybe expect from this Paul Ince Reading team. Again, we're seeing something slightly different than what we played before. It should be an interesting test for us, but we'll get talking about that. We won't dwell too much on the Rotherham game because it does seem so long ago now. Shout out to Bio for a really good finish, perhaps. And there were some other interesting elements, but yeah, we're mainly here to talk about Reading today. I will say, quick side note, seeing as the Queen has passed, I will be drinking tonight out of my Diamond Jubilee glass, courtesy of the Red Line in Milton. Must be a few years ago now, but paying my respects. That's that out of the way, and we'll get into this game, which is, it's kind of actually a more of a top of the table clash you may have anticipated earlier on in pre-season. But we'll get to discussing it now. So we'll kind of have a look at their previous performance. They went out against Stoke. They won 2-1. And we'll talk about shape. We'll also talk about some injuries, actually, maybe first. So we'll start off with the team news, because there are some interesting pieces of news coming out of the Reading camp. Mainly, Shane Long will be unavailable for this game, it seems. It seems he's got some sort of illness and will be missing the game. But also on top of that, Yaku Maite as well is back in training, but perhaps too early to start. So it leaves in a bit of an interesting situation. The forward positions might force them into a change of shape, with Long being unavailable and Maite also not being fully fit. They're a little bit short on options there. And then they've got other longer term absentees. Scott Dans, what a nightmare signing that's been for Reading. Ajaria also out, which is a shame. He would have given them some flexibility in changing shape and at least maybe having somewhat of a more functioning forward line. So we'll talk about the shape, talk about where they are currently. So obviously Reading have kind of excelled a little bit, or got kind of done better than most assumed at this point they would be at this point of the season. Let's have a look at this table quick. We get the point. So 8 games in, Reading sit with 5 wins, 3 losses, won the last 3 games. Pretty impressive form for a team that were kind of fancied for relegation, and to be around that area. They've done pretty well to be competing up at this end of the table, and it obviously leads us into a fixture which, as I said earlier, we might not have fancied as being such a high-end clash, but here we are, it is. And actually, last time we played in the Championship previously, our away game to Reading, early on, where Tom Bashir got injured, Reading were kind of floating around the top of the table there as well. At that point, it could be a similar season for them. They do end up tailing off, but it's been a great start for them and will be very important for them as the year goes on. But looking at kind of what they have out and where they want to be, they just keep racking up these injuries, and you have to think it's going to catch up with them result-wise soon as well. They play in the back three, 3-5-2, effectively. It's somewhat of a... It's not the most counter-attacking system necessarily. They have Junior Hoylett, who can be an outlet down the left. Yeardham on the right, not so much of a carrier. He occupies a little bit of a deeper position. You can see in the heat maps there. Obviously, Hoylett's still active deep, but in forward areas he's more offensively minded. He's able to get forward and support more. So they are a little bit lopsided. Not dissimilar to how we've been at times, in terms of not having exactly 2 wing-backs that bomb on. But they are playing that 3-5-2. The difference will be now, with Maite unlikely to start and Shane Long out, do they potentially switch? Tom Ince has been occupying somewhat of a number 10 position. He's been getting a little bit deeper as well and kind of sticking more to the right, but he is there to float around and offer support there, alongside Forner and Jeff Hendrick there as well. And the question will be, though, how do they switch? What kind of change of shape do we see? Who do we see come in? You got someone like Guinness Walker that could perhaps come in on the left and free up Hoylett to play as more of a traditional winger and perhaps a 3-4-3 sort of situation. We'll discuss kind of what we've seen from them, because there were some signs of different opportunities in terms of shape in pre-season. They did play in a similar way, where they almost played at times with 2 10s. They could use Ajaria or they could use Tom Ince and different options there, but they were playing in that kind of more narrow system, that 3-4-3 effectively. We're missing 2 players here, aren't we? Hold on. Let's bring these over here. But whether or not they decide to go that route, it'd be interesting to see. It's a difficult one for them. They actually definitely have some issues. But in terms of the functionality of the team, they rely a little bit on Jeff Hendrick to get the ball forwards. He's someone that can progress the ball somewhat, but progression is a little bit of a struggle for them at times. Whilst they have got the carriers in Hoylett and Ince, it's finding a way to be consistently getting the ball up the pitch, and that's been a slight concern. But it's something that obviously we've had our own issues with ourselves at times, and we know the kind of frailties of this system. If you don't have that tempo and that precision in midfield, it can be difficult to play forwards, and they've experienced that. Well, they did have, though, previously with Shane Long, as they had someone that could harry, someone that could press, and it was working quite nicely for them, allowing them to get some turnovers. And be a little bit more effective at the other end of the pitch. Because we know about Lucas João, someone that we've been linked to ourselves. And whilst he is a good striker, he kind of floats around. He does what he wants. He can get in the box, he can be active, but he's not always someone you can rely to be on in the right position every single time when it comes to that forward play, that interchanging. He's someone that's a poacher, and he just kind of, as I said, plays where he wants. And it's a little bit difficult sometimes for them, especially too on the right. Getting the ball forwards again has been a bit of an issue. Yaredam's not someone that's going to bomb forwards and take on his man and get past time after time. Hendrick doing a bit of the carry, and even Hutchinson from the centre having to play in and find a way forward. But often the ball is kind of breaking down at the first phase there. So that's something they have to try and rectify. And something we've got to look at cutting out as well. Question will be for us: do we remain in a 3? Do we go back to the 4 again? I think it's quite likely now we stay in that 3. We have some players coming back. I'm not sure. We haven't really had a fitness. I don't think we've had any update on team news. Bear with me 1 sec. My typing is all over the place. I don't think we've had any team news in regards to injuries. But Jeremy Ngakia and Loser are back in training. Okay. Oh no, it's Player of the Month award. Yeah, there's not actually much here, is there? But with Ngakia coming back to training, obviously Loser's starting to get back into training as well. Could we see us kind of maybe get one of them players in? Unlikely on Loser. I'm not sure how far Ngakia is off from injury, but I think we will continue with the back 3 regardless. And there's going to be a key area here. I think the attacking midfielder stopping that progression. I think Espria, if it is Espria to play, has to have quite a big role in terms of just breaking up that play and stopping that interchange, which he's actually done a pretty good job of. I think one of the aspects of his play which has been less discussed has been his off the ball work, which has been pretty good, especially for the age he is. He's quite tenacious and he gets himself into some aggressive positions defensively. He's not afraid to close the player. He'll get wide as well and offer you something there. So that's an element we've got to be focused on. I think there's a little bit more leeway on the right side, on our left side, the right side for Reading, in terms of the outside centre-back position. But with Courtney House being as dominant as he has been or was in the last game, I think we can feel quite good about that position. Again, Craig Cathcart, I actually quite fancy him here. I think this is the most confident I've been about an outside centre-back matchup so far. Obviously with most likely Kamara on the right and Hoylett being his main threat. With Cathcart, I actually think we're capable of nullifying those wings. It just depends what they do with the more forward positions. If they switch to that kind of 2-10 behind the striker sort of formation, maybe they go for wider players. They're going to have to do something different most likely in that front area, just based on the person they have available. It's possible they do stay 2 up top and find some other way of doing it, but in terms of getting quality on the pitch, you think they'd probably change shape somewhat, in which case I think that is beneficial to us. In regards to us, we've got to try and continue to build on the things we've been so far attempting to build on. Can we be a little bit more precise? Can we find some more threat from the wide areas? Can we kind of get Kamara functioning from the right? It's difficult for him to do. We know it's not his natural position, but we do have some positives. Obviously, João Pedro's come back in. Vacuum Bio's been in good goal scoring form. But then also we have the question mark now with Ismaila Sarr coming back to fitness. How do we fit them all in? Do we play Pedro deeper and then Sarr and Bayo up top? I think it's probably the most likely, or Sarr will maybe start this one from the bench. But I think it's key that we have Bayo in there. And whilst he's had his detractors this season, I think the most important thing in terms of Bayo's play so far, leading up into his last 2 games, obviously he's scored 2 goals. His movement's been good the whole time. It's something we've discussed previously on this channel and on Twitter and podcasts and so on. But he's been active. He's been moving. He's looking for the ball. He's getting into good spots, and he's finally kind of getting some payoff for that. And obviously the second goal was fantastic. Bit of technique against Rotherham, and that's something to feel really positive about. Where we do have concerns, though, I will talk about obviously some concerns. It's not all perfect by any means. Couple of concerns in regard to the centre of the defence. Previously against Rotherham, we saw Christian Cabaselli come in for Siriata, and we looked weaker there. I'm not sure if it is just a pure selection, personnel choice on Cabaselli over Siriata, or if there was any issues there the Everest had to contend with, but I thought we looked the weaker for it. I think Siriata's been actually consistently the best out of the back 3 in that central position. It suits what he does really well. He's somewhat of a limited defender, but I think that position is really good for him. Cabaselli, on the other hand, I thought looked uncomfortable. Obviously, the goal he was partly at fault for the goal. Lack of decisiveness and kind of aggression in that situation where he didn't kind of control the box, allowed the ball to be in a dangerous area and didn't really look to deal with it or show any kind of sort of proactivity. So that was frustrating. I think that's something we have to be concerned with, especially with the way that Zhao plays in the box, the movement he has. He's more than happy to come in at some awkward angles and find some space, especially against a back 3. If he is playing in his zone, I don't expect him to be around there much. I think he'll probably be less box active and try and find the way into the box a little bit later and something in a little bit more of an advantageous position for him rather than getting his body up against 3 men. I think he's going to try and be a little bit more awkward. He's a smart player. Even if he's not always exactly where you want at the right time, he does find space for himself in some different areas. So I don't love the matchup there if Cabaselli is to play. I would like to see Siriata back in the team. I think we have to see dominance from Bachmann. He has to be aggressive on crosses and be proactive again, and perhaps be coming off his line a little bit quicker and dealing with some of these balls that maybe get pushed through if they are kind of playing those 2 roaming 10s. So that's kind of the main feeling I have from a tactical standpoint. We'll look at a few of the individual players they've got in the team. Obviously, Sam Hutchinson is a bit of a known quantity, been around the league for a long time. He does what he does in the centre of the pitch. Maybe not quite as dominant as Siriata, but someone that maybe offers a little bit more on the ball. He's been quite helpful in progression for them. Jeff Hendrick's been, as I said, another key point. Someone that can play the ball forward a little bit from deep. Hoylett is a nice option on the wing. From that wing-back position, can get forward and attack, maybe a little bit suspect defensively. And Tom Ince has been, more of that creative player, can play from wide, central. He carries the ball really well, and we've had to face quite a few dribblers so far, but he's one that's definitely quite competent at that role. And the position he has in this team can vary quite a lot and can be quite a fluid one. So something you have to be quite aware of throughout the game and prior to it. I guess we will also talk about the timing of some of these goals. This game was quite interesting. I watched the game, went back and watched the game, and it was good to see Ben Wilmot get on the score sheet. Former Watford player Ben Wilmot, a lot of us liked. He also gave away the penalty too, and obviously Jack Bonham as well was someone who had a nightmare performance. Unfortunately, he was a howler for the first goal. It was unfortunate to see. But yeah, he really made a mistake, and it was, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but it was very, very poor. But what I did want to discuss, though, real quick, was the timings of these goals. I'm just going to see if I can get the Reading fixtures out. This might be the best way to look at it. Hold on, bear with me. Okay, so I guess we'll look at the results, but anyway. So one thing that Reading have been doing so far is they have been scoring early goals. 2nd minute against Stoke. Well, they conceded all 4 that game, so we'll write that one off. Millwall, 14 minutes in. So the tempo has been pretty good from the beginning. They've been able to get numbers forward nice and early. 28 minutes, so not as early. There are a few early goals in here. Yeah, 14 minutes again. The early scorers, and we're going to contrast that because obviously Watford ourselves, we've been conceding early, back to back now. We conceded early goals, in the game, and that's something to be concerned about slightly. Obviously, it's a little bit of a difficult one to kind of quantify. A lot of factors at play, the different reasons as to why you find yourself in that position. Some of it's luck and coincidence and so on, but you can at least draw some sort of indication, perhaps from a Watford standpoint, with slow starters, and I think that's fair to say on all aspects of the game, not just defensively, but I think in general we've been slow starters. Obviously, 2 minutes in, we conceded against Rotherham, which is pretty extreme, and then also the game beforehand as well against Middlesbrough. 4 minutes in, is it something to watch out for? I'd say it's just keep an eye on it. It's something you've got to be switched on about. The way that Reading start games, the way that we start games are pretty much polar opposites. So we have to be focused on that to some degree. How you quantify that is kind of up for debate, and what you do about it also. But I think what's undeniable is that Watford have to start quicker. They have to be on the ball a little bit faster. We've been too lax in those early minutes. We've taken too much time to settle into games, and we're leaving it a bit too late. And I think that's why we've kind of come away with some of the draws that we've done. When you're starting to click in the last, second half, 25, 30 minutes of a game, and it's just not quite enough, and the league can be as close as it is. It's something to definitely be aware of. And yeah, I think that's kind of most of it. This video is not going to be too long. As I said, we just kind of want to talk a little bit about Reading and what they might bring to Vicarage Road. Shape, we have to just keep an eye on. I'm fascinated to see what the team looks like at kickoff. I think they're going to have to be making a few adjustments to really be competitive in this game. So for me, this is obviously a must-win game. I know they're a team that are above us. I say must-win. It's not a must-win, but I just think that at home against a team such as Reading, where they are with their injuries, I think they're kind of on somewhat borrowed time. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up this momentum and this sort of winning streak as they have been. I think we have to try and be the team that's breaking it. And at home, I want to see us be a little bit more dominant in possession, a little bit more incisive, and again, just try and keep clicking, getting these slow incremental developments, improvements, just kind of keep them moving along and see if we can kind of put together a full 90-minute performance, because so far it's been too fragmented, too few and far between have we kind of seen that consistent patterns of play. One thing that I will say, actually, just in regard to specifics, player-wise in our hands and on our team, Kayembe, I want to see a little bit more of that carrying ability. He did well against Rotherham in some ways, and when he did, it was through carrying. I think passing the ball, use of possession is still poor at times, but when he's someone that can pick up the ball from deep and drag it forwards, bring it forwards, bring others into play in that capacity, we look a lot better for it. And Chowdhury is still there to be that more central figure, but I think we don't have that box to box. We don't have a real progressor in there right now. So if Kayembe is someone that can bring the ball forwards in a more direct route, then we have to make the most of it. So there are positives. I think we've still got a very good chance, and with the return of Ismail Assar, we'll have weapons on the bench, or if not, someone to start and be a threat for this team. So, up to the team now and up to Rob to kind of put in a performance, and let's see if we can start to climb our way back up the table and get towards those automatic promotion spots. I guess what we'll look at real quick is a couple of the passing networks and their ranking as well, I guess, in some certain areas. We'll start with the ranking. Alright, so let's have a look at expected goals. So where are we, Reading? So Reading are pretty low, right down the bottom. Not that far below us, as it happens. Expected goals against, and they are about middle of the pack. Nothing crazy. Average age, they're actually an older team. I think their average age is around 29. Okay, average age of the squad is 27.2, but the team that's been playing is about 29. Possession-wise, not having a ton of the ball, averaging 43. Construction, amount of passes per game, I believe, is relatively low. Yeah, again, averaging, let's have a look per 90. Yeah, averaging 275 passes per game compared to us, but almost 100 more. Passing rate, third lowest. But carrying wise, per 90 progressive runs, also pretty low. See how much they can get in the deep completions in per 90. Also pretty low. A lot of the numbers are very low in comparison to where they are in the league position. Middle of the pack in PPDA, passes per defensive action. Defensively, so the passes per defensive action against. Okay. Yeah. So it's nothing standout. I think the thing is, when you look at the numbers, there's nothing that really sticks out as being overly surprising. I don't think they're getting many touches in the penalty area per 90 either. They're getting the least touches in the box per 90. It's just efficiency and some execution, which is maybe kind of slightly unexpected, but you have someone like Lucas João who pops up with 2 goals. Obviously one of them was a penalty, but they give you that edge, and I think there's a level of overperformance we have to take into account. We're looking at the table and looking at the team we're playing. So no disrespect to Reading, I think they have got some weapons. They could definitely hurt us. They're fully capable of beating us as well. We have to be aware of that and cognizant of it. But for me, it's a team we've got to be going into a home game looking at winning. So yeah, thanks for watching again. We're back to talk about the game after the final result, hopefully discussing a Watford win. Also, we're talking about the following fixtures, and yeah, looking ahead to continue for the season. I keep saying it, but the more this time goes on, I'm hoping to get more time kind of put aside that we can really focus on these a little bit more and start making it a little bit more consistent and longer form, or kind of really whatever suits and whatever people want. So thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We want to, I guess, hit, I think what the next benchmark is, 500, 1,000 subscribers. Don't have to either. I'm going to post it to my Twitter, so if you come through Twitter to find this, then that's also fine. And speaking of which, you could follow me at Watford Analytics. I'll be talking on the Watford Buzz podcast with myself, Matt and Tom, as well as in lots of other places. So thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye for now.